most people would ignore that feeling. Ethan Carter never did. And on one cold Friday night, that instinct would become the only reason he stayed alive. It was 11:42 p.m. in Chicago. A steady rain had covered the city in a blanket of fog, and the streets reflected the glow of traffic lights like shattered glass. After a long shift at work, Ethan hurried toward the subway station. He was exhausted. All he wanted was to get home, eat something, and sleep. As he reached the platform, he glanced at the departure board. Last train 11:45 p.m. He had barely made it. The station felt strangely quiet. Too quiet. Only 3 other people were waiting. An elderly woman sat perfectly still on a bench, holding an old leather suitcase. A man dressed in a black suit stood near the edge of the platform, staring into the dark tunnel without blinking. And a teenage boy wearing headphones kept looking over his shoulder as if someone was following him. None of them spoke. The silence felt unnatural. A cold wind swept through the station. Then, a loud metallic screech echoed through the tunnel. The train slowly emerged from the darkness. Its headlights cut through the fog like 2 glowing eyes. The doors slid open with a sharp hiss. The passengers stepped inside without saying a word. Ethan hesitated for just a second. For some reason, he felt like he shouldn't board. But he shook off the strange feeling and walked inside. The doors closed behind him. The train began moving. At first, everything seemed normal. The rhythmic sound of the tracks was almost comforting. Ethan leaned back in his seat and checked his phone. No signal. He frowned. That wasn't unusual underground. Then he looked up. Every passenger was staring directly at him. Not talking. Not blinking. Just watching. A chill ran down Ethan's spine. Before he could say a word, the lights suddenly went out. The darkness lasted only 3 seconds. But to Ethan, it felt like an eternity. When the lights flickered back on, he blinked several times. His heart stopped. Every seat was empty. The elderly woman, gone. The man in the black suit, gone. The teenage boy, gone. There wasn't a single passenger left. Hello? His voice echoed through the silent train. No answer. Trying to stay calm, Ethan walked into the next car. Empty. The next one. Also empty. He hurried through every carriage. Nothing. No passengers. No conductor. No train operator. The subway was moving completely on its own. His breathing became faster. This isn't possible. He pulled out his phone. Still no signal. Even stranger, the time hadn't changed. It still read 11:45 p.m. 5 minutes had passed. At least it felt like 5 minutes. But the clock refused to move. Suddenly, a loud crackling sound came from the speaker above his head. Static filled the train. Then a slow, broken, almost human voice whispered, "Passenger number 1. Silence. A few seconds later, the voice returned. "Do not leave the train." Ethan's blood ran cold. "What? Who are you?" he shouted. No reply. Instead, the train began slowing down. Outside the window, there were no city lights. No buildings. Only thick gray fog. The brakes screeched loudly. The train stopped. A rusty station sign slowly became visible. It read, Black Ridge. Ethan frowned. "I've lived in Chicago my whole life. There is no Black Ridge station." The doors slid open with a long hiss. Cold air rushed inside. The platform was completely empty. Or so he thought. Then, from the fog, a small figure appeared. A little girl, no older than 8. She wore bright yellow raincoat. She wasn't moving. She simply stood there, smiling. Ethan stared in confusion. The girl slowly raised her hand and pointed directly at him. Then she whispered, "You're late." The train doors remained open, waiting, as if they were giving Ethan a choice: stay inside, or step into a place that shouldn't exist. Ethan stood frozen inside the train. The little girl in the yellow raincoat continued staring at him. Her smile never changed. For a moment, he wondered if he was dreaming. Maybe the exhaustion had finally caught up with him. Maybe his mind was playing tricks. But the cold air coming from the open train doors felt real. Too real. "Who are you?" Ethan finally asked. The girl tilted her head slightly. "You don't remember me?" Those words made Ethan uncomfortable. "Remember you? I've never seen you before." The girl's smile slowly disappeared. That's what everyone says at first. A strange feeling moved through Ethan's body. Before he could ask another question, the train lights started flickering again. The girl looked behind him. Her expression suddenly changed. Fear appeared in her eyes. "Someone is coming." Ethan turned around. The empty train corridor was still there. Nothing moved. "Who?" The girl stepped backward into the fog. "You need to leave before they find you." "What are you talking about?" But before Ethan could get another answer, the train doors began closing. "No." He rushed forward. The doors slammed shut just inches before he reached them. The train started moving again. Ethan pressed his hands against the window. The girl became smaller and smaller as the train disappeared into the darkness. But just before she vanished completely, she lifted her hand. She was holding something, a small photograph. Ethan couldn't see it clearly. Then the tunnel swallowed her. The train continued forward. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Ethan had no idea anymore. The strange thing was, the train wasn't stopping. The stations outside the window weren't normal. Some looked abandoned. Some looked like places from another time. One station had old advertisements from the 1980s. Another looked like it had never been touched by humans. Then suddenly, the train stopped again. This time, the speaker came alive. But the voice was different. It was deeper, colder. "Ethan Carter." He froze. Nobody on this train should know his name. The voice continued. "You were never supposed to remember." Ethan slowly stepped away from the speaker. His hands started shaking. "Remember what?" For a few seconds, there was only silence. Then the voice answered, "The night you disappeared." Ethan's face went pale, because he knew one thing for certain. He had never disappeared. Or at least, that was what he believed. Ethan stared at the speaker above him. His mind was racing. "The night you disappeared." The words kept repeating in his head. "What does that mean?" he shouted. But the train gave him no answer, only silence. The lights inside the carriage flickered softly. For the first time that night, Ethan felt truly afraid. Not because he was alone, but because something on this train knew things about him that even he didn't understand. He slowly sat down, trying to remember. Had something happened to him? A missing day? A forgotten memory? He closed his eyes, and suddenly, a picture flashed in his mind. A rainy night, a younger version of himself, a train station, and a little girl wearing a yellow raincoat. Ethan opened his eyes immediately. "No," he whispered. "That can't be real." He grabbed his head. The memory disappeared as quickly as it came. Then, something fell onto the floor. A small object. Ethan looked down. It was a photograph. The same photograph the little girl was holding. His hands trembled as he picked it up. The picture showed a group of people standing in front of an old train station. There was an elderly woman, a man in a black suit, a teenage boy, and a young Ethan. He dropped the photo. Impossible. The boy in the picture looked exactly like him, but he was younger, maybe 10 years old. On the back of the photograph, there was a handwritten message. Blackridge Station, July 14, 2006. Ethan stared at the date. His breathing stopped. July 14, 2006. That was the day his parents told him he had gotten lost at a carnival. The day he supposedly disappeared for 3 hours. But Ethan never remembered what happened. During those 3 hours, everyone called it a childhood accident. A bad memory, a forgotten moment. But now, he was beginning to realize something. Maybe he wasn't lost. Maybe he was taken somewhere. Suddenly, the train shook violently. The lights turned red. The speaker came alive again. This time, the voice sounded closer, almost like someone was standing right beside him. Ethan. He slowly turned around. Nobody was there. Then the voice whispered, "You left someone behind." The train doors opened, and standing outside on the dark platform was the little girl in the yellow raincoat. But now Ethan noticed something terrifying. She hadn't aged a single day. She looked exactly like she did in the photograph. A photograph taken 20 years ago. Ethan couldn't move. He stood inside the train, staring at the little girl on the platform. The same yellow raincoat, the same face, the same innocent smile. But that was impossible. 20 years had passed since that photograph was taken. A child from 2006 could not still look exactly the same. "Who are you?" Ethan whispered. The girl looked at him sadly. "My name is Lily." The name felt familiar. A memory tried to come back. A playground. A carnival. A little girl laughing. But before Ethan could remember more, the train speaker turned on. "Do not trust her." Ethan looked up. The voice was different. It sounded angry. Lily looked toward the speaker. Her face became serious. "They are trying to confuse you." "Who are they?" Ethan asked. She looked into the darkness behind the station. "The ones who keep this place alive." A cold wind moved through the platform. Ethan finally stepped out of the train. The moment his feet touched the ground, the train doors closed behind him. The train disappeared into the fog, not moved away, not traveled into a tunnel. It simply vanished. Ethan looked around. Blackridge Station was unlike any place he had ever seen. The walls were covered with old clocks, hundreds of them, but every clock showed the same time. 11:45 p.m. Lily started walking. "Come with me." "Where?" "To the place where you lost your memory." Ethan followed her through the empty station. They passed old posters hanging on the walls. Most were faded, but one poster caught Ethan's attention. His entire body went cold. It was a missing person poster. The picture on it was him. The name below it read, Ethan Carter, missing since July 14, 2006. Ethan stepped closer. His hands started shaking. The poster said, "Last seen at Blackridge Carnival Station." "No," he whispered. "This is wrong." Lily looked at him. "You spent 20 years believing you came back." Ethan turned toward her. "What are you talking about?" The girl pointed toward the old station clock. "Because here." She paused. "Time doesn't move the way it does outside." Ethan stared at the clock. The second hand was frozen. Then suddenly, It moved. Backward. 11:44. 11:43. 11:42. The entire station began shaking. Lily grabbed Ethan's hand. "We have to leave." "Why?" She looked terrified. "Because when the clock reaches midnight, they will come to collect you." The clock continued moving backward. 11:42. 11:41. 11:40. Each second felt heavier than the last. Ethan followed Lily through the dark corridors of Blackridge Station. He still couldn't understand what was happening. His entire life, everything he believed, suddenly felt like a lie. "Lily," Ethan said, trying to catch his breath, "tell me the truth." The girl stopped walking. "The truth is sometimes harder to accept than a lie. I need to know." Lily looked at him. "You didn't get lost that night, Ethan." A long silence filled the station. "You came here?" Ethan shook his head. "No. That's impossible. I went home that night." Lily looked down. "Did you ever ask yourself why nobody remembered how you got home?" Ethan froze. He had never thought about that. His parents always avoided talking about that night. They only told him, "You were found near the road. A stranger brought you back." But who was the stranger? Why couldn't he remember? Lily continued. "When you arrived at Blackridge, you weren't alone." Ethan looked confused. "Who was with me?" Before Lily could answer, a sound echoed through the station. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Coming. Closer. Lily's face turned pale. "They found us." The lights above them started turning off one by one. Darkness followed the footsteps. Ethan whispered, "Who is coming?" Lily grabbed his arm. "The passengers." "What passengers?" She looked toward the darkness. "The ones who never left." A figure appeared at the end of the hallway. The man in the black suit. The same man who was on the train. But now Ethan noticed something different. His eyes were completely empty, like there was no life inside them. "Ethan Carter," the man said. His voice echoed through the station. "You were told not to remember." Ethan stepped backward. "Who are you?" The man smiled. "I am the conductor." A cold feeling moved through Ethan. "But you weren't driving the train." The man's smile became wider. "Because this train doesn't need a driver." He slowly walked closer. "It only needs passengers." The clock above them reached 12 a.m. Suddenly, every light in Blackridge Station turned on, and Ethan saw hundreds of people standing around him. People of all ages, all wearing old clothes from different decades, all staring at him. Lily whispered, "They've been waiting 20 years for you." The conductor raised his hand and said, "Welcome back, Ethan." "Welcome back, Ethan." The conductor's words echoed through the station. Ethan looked around in horror. Hundreds of people stood silently around him. Some looked like they had just arrived. Others looked like they had been waiting for decades. A woman wearing an old-fashioned dress. A soldier holding a broken suitcase. A businessman carrying a newspaper from another era. All of them had one thing in common. They looked lost, like they were trapped between two worlds. Ethan turned toward Lily. "Who are these people?" Lily looked at the crowd with sadness in her eyes. "They are the passengers of Blackridge." "But why are they here?" "Because they never reached their destination." Ethan looked at the conductor. "What do you want from me?" The conductor slowly walked closer. "We want you to remember." "I don't understand." The conductor pointed toward an old door at the end of the station. "Open that door, and you will understand everything." The door looked ancient. A rusty sign above it said, "MEMORY." Archive. Ethan felt a strange connection to it. Like something inside was calling him. No, Lily said quietly. Ethan looked at her. What? Don't open it. Why? Because once you remember everything, you may never leave. The conductor smiled. She is afraid because she knows the truth. Ethan looked between them. Then tell me the truth. The station became silent. The conductor spoke. 20 years ago. You boarded the last train with your parents. Ethan's eyes widened. My parents? Yes. You were only 10 years old. The memory began returning. A carnival. Bright lights. His father's hand holding his. His mother's voice calling his name. Then, a train. A sudden stop. A strange station. Blackridge. Ethan covered his ears. No. The conductor continued. Your parents realized this place was not normal. They tried to escape. What happened to them? The conductor didn't answer. And that silence was worse than any answer. Lily looked away. Ethan. A tear rolled down her face. Your parents gave their lives so you could return. Ethan stared at her. Return. The conductor stepped closer. But you made a mistake. What mistake? The conductor pointed at Ethan. You forgot us. The station started shaking. The walls cracked. The old clocks began spinning wildly. Then a deep voice came from everywhere at once. One passenger must remain. Ethan looked at Lily. What does that mean? Lily whispered. Blackridge always needs a last passenger. The conductor smiled. And tonight, the crowd slowly moved closer. It's your turn. The crowd moved closer. Slowly, silently. Every step echoed through the empty station. Ethan felt trapped. There was nowhere to run. The conductor stood in front of him with a calm smile. Every 20 years, Blackridge chooses a passenger. Ethan looked at Lily. Why me? Lily looked down. Because you were the first person who escaped. The words hit Ethan like a shock. The memories suddenly came back. All of them. The night of July 14th, 2006. The carnival. The train ride. His parents discovering Blackridge. The passengers trapped here. His father pushing him toward the exit. His mother crying as she told him, Ethan, no matter what happens, don't look back. He remembered running. He remembered the train doors closing. He remembered hearing his parents' voices disappear into the darkness, but he never remembered one thing. He never remembered leaving alone. A tear rolled down his face. My parents. Lily nodded. They saved you? Ethan looked at the conductor. You made them stay here. The conductor's expression changed. For the first time, he looked angry. Your parents chose their fate. No. Ethan stepped forward. They chose me. The station shook violently. The clocks started exploding one after another. 11:59 p.m. The conductor's voice became louder. You cannot change what happened. Ethan looked around at the trapped passengers. People who had lost their lives, waiting for a way home. Then he realized something. Blackridge wasn't powered by passengers. It was powered by their memories, their fear, their regret. And if that was true, there was only one way to destroy it. Ethan walked toward the old door marked Memory Archive. The conductor shouted, Stop! But Ethan opened the door. Inside were thousands of objects. Photos, letters, personal belongings, everything the passengers had lost. At the center of the room was one small box with his name written on it. Ethan Carter. He opened it. Inside was a note from his parents. The message was simple. Never let this place make you forget who you are. Ethan smiled through tears. Then he burned the note. The entire station began collapsing. The trapped passengers started disappearing. Not in fear, but in peace. The conductor screamed. No. His body began turning into smoke. You were supposed to be the last passenger. Ethan looked at him. No. I was the one who came back. A bright light filled the station. Then everything went silent. The next morning, a subway worker found Ethan sitting alone on an empty platform. The strange thing was, the station was not on any map. There was no record of Blackridge ever existing. When police checked Ethan's identity, they discovered something impossible. According to their records, Ethan Carter had disappeared 20 years ago, on July 14, 2006. But somehow, he was standing there, alive. Years later, Ethan never told anyone the full story. People would never believe him. But every Friday night at 11:45 p.m., he still visits the subway station. Because sometimes, when the rain is heavy, and the city becomes quiet, he hears a familiar sound. A train approaching from the darkness, and on the last window, a little girl in a yellow raincoat waves at him, as if saying, "Thank you for remembering."